The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. What's happening? Benton here. Back to the motel. Yep. This is 2 nights in the motel, Monday night and Tuesday night. What's today? Wednesday, and already paid for 2 more. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the replay crew. Figured it was time to come on here and give some updates. So bear with me one moment. Get everything set up. I'm in my car outside the hotel. As much as I did enjoy the walk and talks of the past, if anyone remembers those, um, that hasn't always gone perfectly well. Uh, Although I'm sure it would be fine if I wanted to walk and talk. Interestingly, near my car is a fellow sleeping in his car and listening to Opie and Anthony, old Opie and Anthony's on his phone. So that's interesting. I said, Opie and Anthony. He kind of stuck his head up for a minute, but went back to sleep. Poor little feller. Hopefully, the discourse here does not disturb him. So, as some may have suspected, there's no more truck driving for now. And today, in fact, in a few hours, the plan is to go to the state revenue office and renew the driver's license. I'm a bit conflicted. Part of me would like to, in fact, surrender the CDL or commercial portion of the driver's license. The reality is, it's simply not going to be possible um, to completely divorce or remove myself from commerce entirely. But what I'm seeing with respect to myself, again, none of this is advice or a suggestion for the listener. Food for thought, entertainment. Uh, a way of analyzing and critically thinking. And before I forget, thinking about just how much the discourse of the recent live streams has progressed, I would want to disabuse uh, the audience or the listener of any notions around a movement, or in fact something I've spoken out against vociferously in the past, any ideas of a movement or um, some sort of collective coming together. This is entertainment and food for thought, and I enjoy thinking. I enjoy discussing ideas. I enjoy looking at various topics from many different angles in my own head, and then um, after years, weeks, months, years of pondering, analyzing, epiphanies, then I'm able to, blessings, by the way, it's a blessing to be able to come onto the internet and have, a number of people that will listen. That's a blessing. And I've certainly realized, um, just talking these, talking through all of this material helps me a great deal. Already this morning, I've been in the notebooks because I realized that without speaking the discourse, the formal organization of the ideas, it needs to be for me either speaking it out loud, because knowing that somebody's listening ensures that it's placed in something of a structure, the discourse itself, versus when I'm lost in the reverie of my own thoughts, and more or less operating in the real world on autopilot. And I have a story about that already yesterday from the laundromat, an interesting story I believe you will enjoy, or slash be horrified by, as I was to some extent. And with my not so stellar storytelling abilities, I'm sure that will be fun to try to get through that. But yeah, I want to reiterate entertainment, food for thought, critical thinking, and I am starting to see not by way of hope, because remember, as far as I'm concerned, hope is based on that the individual human contained within the individual human is the idea of a hope station. But with some of the younger generations, some of the Gen Z and younger millennials, and a lot of this for the males has to do around topics of dating and relationships and marriage and women and how much of an individual male's view of himself is based on how society treats and views him, a lot of which has to do with his relationship with women and marriage and breadwinning, and all of these things that in some ways are simply no longer possible, or at least um, they don't function in the ways that they functioned in the past, arguably, and that is debatable. But um, I have my own opinions, obviously, clearly. And this experience that I'm going to be speaking about at the laundromat yesterday, and remember, if anybody remembers, I actually got banned slash refused to ever, uh, darken their doorstep again. A different motel, I'm sorry, well, it's in a motel, but a different laundromat. And I had used to stay by the week at that particular motel near downtown Fort Smith, Arkansas. I got into some sort of disagreement with the lady working there, and then the owner. She called the owner in, and they were both actually like verbally attacking me on live stream. That may still be on the channel somewhere. I don't know. That was a couple of years ago now. And then I still am able to go to this laundromat, and it actually the one that I'm speaking of yesterday. And in fact, overall, I did nothing wrong. But then, um, we get into some areas where I was somewhat attacked out of nowhere, and then I will get into my own discussions around the surrealism, the unreality, because there's no way this was real, strictly speaking. And in fact, that's what a lot of and I took notes yesterday also just for my own purposes, but some of the note taking this morning ties in with um, the nature of this experience, the nature of this realm. And, it's, this is not a requirement, but I would say that anybody who's honest and is capable of observation and actually thinking critically, would come to the conclusion, and I would not want to force this on them, but it's my belief that a thinking person would have to uh, come to the conclusion that daily life, or at least, on a regular basis, there's certainly elements of unreality, which apparently is a word, unreality and surrealism. So that's certainly a thing. So, and I'll go ahead and get into the story now that I'm thinking about it. So, and I'll skip sort of to the juicy bits, and then since I skip around in the storytelling, we will get there or not. Uh, so I was at the laundromat. It's a nice, it's the nicest one in the town. Modern, brand new machines. Actually, I had not seen these versions of like the Speed Queen machines or whatever. It was actually, this has to be the latest model of machines visually. And I think I did I'm almost certain I did laundry there once before, um, maybe a couple of years ago. So maybe it's been updated, I'm guessing. I wasn't paying that much attention last time, but yeah, I believe probably been updated, fully touch screen. But I think the Speed Queen brand, I believe, which is fine. I'm not a fan of the front loading washers in general, but these actually work. I mean, they do properly wash the clothes. I found a lot of those front loading machines do not rinse properly. Um, and I do have a bit of the sensitive skin at times, even though I use, well, and that's another thing, those machines, a properly filtered top loader almost completely eliminates where I will then be using some of the soap from whoever washed last. And actually, this machine, it has an option where it's possible to pay money if the person wants to pay a couple of 50 cents and wait. It actually rinses the machine, but I don't. Still, there seems to always be a little bit of soap left in the area where the person adds their own soap. Um, so some of that can come into the sensitive skin where especially Mexican people tend to put way too much soap into the machines. I don't know if you folks have ever noticed this. Must be a cultural thing. They want to see nothing but suds in the front loaders, but the front loaders are not designed to be able to rinse that amount of soap. So anyway, let's not get too pedantic around that. So what happened was there was this old man working at this laundromat, and also this laundromat, it had a lot of employees just walking around pretending to work, which I found interesting. There was at least two gals working the drop off your laundry, and in fact they had an entire covered um, drive through for people picking up and dropping off their laundry, which makes a lot of sense in the modern age of people doing Uber Eats and all of this thing. Just the idea of convenience based services, and then I'm seeing that the dumbos that comprise the masses are now getting a lot of this propaganda and programming around. Well, it's okay to spend more for to have your groceries delivered to your door because your time is valuable, which also implies that the person is productively and efficiently making use of their time, which is generally not the case with now there are some version of a Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week, like very productive people, you know uh making the people that the corporations justify paying 250,000 plus a year to, yeah, they probably actually lose money by physically going to the grocery store and doing their own shopping. I get that. But then if we even look at depending on where one lives, driving up to the grocery store and then having the groceries already picked out ahead of time and then just having someone bring them to the car versus what's the extra cost of having them delivered to the apartment. So we get into these sorts of topics. But I was on this, it's the poor man's Caleb Hammer financial audits, this Roman, this Frenchman who tries to do like a kinder, gentler, um, version of Caleb Hammer in a French accent, right? But he's got a bit of the used car salesman vibes. But his latest video. I was listening to a bit of that, and this just very dumb lady. I mean, some people are, well, let me back up. Most people are pretty fucking dumb. I mean, just overall, right? That's just what it is. Um, and as we've talked about before on the channel, the tendency of the human to let themselves become propelled or pushed or guided or steered into skipping past basic fundamentals and embracing sophistication and complication. Well, for the dumbos, quite easy for them to follow along because who's going to want to acknowledge, well, I understand that, the Tim Ferriss 4-day work week crowd, I understand they're going in a certain direction, but for the dumbo to even be able to realize, well, actually, that's not me, right? Because I don't even view my own time that way, and certainly, I'm much less dumb, than these people I'm speaking of to even be able to have these thoughts, right? And again, we get back to the idea of the realm, you know, individuals generally speaking not processing their own thinking, they're not processing data, they're not packaging their own ideas, and they're having ideas packaged by the system, and then the system sends the ideas via push notification, whether literal, figurative, or both, right? And what that leads to is, I realize my tooth's hurting. I might need to brush my teeth, but we will ride it out. Um, what that leads to is a bunch of dumbos following trends that ends up playing right into the hands of these corporations. Sign up for this service, sign up for that service because your time is valuable. And in fact, at a certain point, this dumbo lady even said, like, Roman, in a very nice, friendly way, called her out on some of her bullshit spending. The opposite of the style of Caleb Hammer, who's basically like, "What the fuck's wrong with you?" You know. And she's justifying it, and then she's actually explained her priorities. And she said, number one was my time is valuable, right? And remember, she did not come up with these ideas. This was given to her. And then she's like, my time's valuable. And she's not being defensive. Something else I've noticed with the dumbos is, if you look at the TikTok videos programming their mind and giving them all of these ideas that I was studying, well over 10 years ago, 10 plus years ago. One of them is from like pickup artist material, is this idea of controlling the frame. So no matter what, she's owning and she's controlling the frame, when means you can't really call her out on anything, right? She's not going to really become defensive. She's already got an answer to that, which is this hierarchy of ideas, which is, well, my time's valuable. Therefore, of course, it makes sense that I'm paying extra to have my groceries delivered because it would actually cost me money to go grocery shopping. But that's simply not the case, because then Roman's like, hey, well, what about you went to this restaurant and that restaurant, and you went to this club and that, like, so clearly this person has a lot of free time, right? It's actually the idea of spend as little time possible doing what needs to be done, you know, in one's day that has to be done at a level of obligation, and then, use the other time productively, but from the standpoint of the corporations, productively, going out here and buying even more products and services. And, this realm of death and destruction via delusion, it's certainly, business is that's the substrate, right? They say, what do they say? And I got into some material about the wages of sin is death. I have some thoughts on that. I'm more or less interpreting the Bible along the way, which the Bible's full of hot garbage lies. I mean, it just is. The Bible as written, if a person reads it literally, it's just a bunch of hot garbage lies with some wisdom in there. If the person has grown and evolved and changed, and has the discernment and spirituality to actually pull the valuable material out of the Bible. And that is my honest assessment of the Bible. Like, I truly mean that. Um, that's exactly how I see it. In fact, some of the dumbest people I've ever seen, maybe in a homeless shelter, I've seen them reading the Bible, sometimes out loud, and then when challenged just ever so gently by me, it was obvious to me this idea from Paramahansa Yogananda, who did write an excellent 2-volume set about the Gospels of Jesus from the Bible. He talked about that um, it's simply deep spiritual insight. Like, it's simply impossible for a person of low spiritual attainment to read something like the Bible and just to believe that they grasp it immediately. So the fact that I've scratched my head for many years trying to read various portions of the Bible and to truly understand it, but then some person who's barely literate in, the Salvation Army dorm, men's dorm, which is very much a jail culture, or when I was there, it was, who just seems to believe at a surface level that he just completely understands immediately what the Bible says. And but it's like, hey, bro, I'm thinking to myself, like, hey, I've been tested in the 99th percentile. And I can't make heads or tails out of like large sections of it. And again, back then, and I'm looking at him like, basically like, bro, it's just simply impossible for you to grasp all of this immediately. And he's just like, yeah, actually, you're wrong. I'm like, okay, my work here's done, sir. Have a nice night. Like, I've tried, right? I've done what I can, sir. Clearly. What's up? What's up, Rick? Good to see you. I'm going to go back to not reading the chat. No offense, sir, but oh, and it is a full moon. Interestingly, completion, right? This idea that the full moon, as I look up and see the moon, this idea of the full moon signifying completion. That certainly struck me. It's not quite full right now, but it was when I did moved out of the truck and drove away from the yard. And I sent them a message, hey, thanks for the opportunity, and I'm done with trucking for now, but if and when I come back in the future, I would certainly come back to this company, and blah blah blah. But I'm pretty sure that's not going to be a thing, which is fine. It's not a big deal. They certainly made their money off of me. So back to the laundromat, and my apology. Well, not my apologies. This is my way. So bouncing around. Back to the laundromat. So I'm in there. Finally, my clothes have just come out of the wash. There was a table near the dryer, or just come out of the dryer. There's a table very near the dryer that I assumed I would be able to use, but this is where the spiritual attack elements come in. A meth head lady, scrawny with gigantic feet, interestingly, that I happen to notice I mean, just maybe a 5'7" lady with feet nearly as long as mine. I was looking at her feet, like, that's like a men's 11. It's crazy. Either way, you'll see that every day. And just her and her lady friend, or I shouldn't say lady friend, her and her friend, just clearly spun the fuck out, like perma spun, which is fine. I mean, again, live and let live. Drunks are the worst. Meth heads are the scum of the earth. But yeah, live and let live. They're fully embracing everything this dystopian realm of delusion, death, and destruction has to offer, right? Leaning into it, which, back to the lukewarm is spat out of the mouth, better to be hot or cold, right? These are the people who are like, fuck it, we're going all in on the depravity, right? And the evil and the destructiveness. So there's something, to be said for that on some level, I would say, spiritually. It's to their own detriment, though. They are the ones who suffer, right? Just watching the herky jerky. If anybody knows these meth head movements, right? It's just the herky jerkiness of all of that. Quite fascinating. It's a very specific way of moving. So at a certain point, they had happened along, and of course, I avoided them like the plague, the two meth head ladies. And then I went outside at a certain point, came back in, and this guy who I was not aware worked there, an old man, probably mid 60s to late 60s, somewhere in there, maybe. Um, held up like a ring of keys with these two strange keys. It almost looked like keys to like machines, right? Like maybe they worked somewhere or just had some kind of it wasn't like a car key or a door key. So he's wondering if these are my keys. Now, this is where we get into the spiritual attack element of things, because to a person who is able to profile, like, and what I mean by profile is, as soon as I see a person and I observe how they're dressed, how they carry themselves, very quickly I know a lot about them, right? And this is sort of contrary. This is the answer to a lot of Mr. Miyagi's ideas. Well, how can you possibly know what they're thinking? It's like, well, I can't, Mr. Miyagi, but however, I can make quite accurate guesses over time based on deductive reasoning. Same thing with profiling. This is something I mastered living in the streets with nothing for so many years, being able to quickly assess, well, who is this person coming towards me, and what are they on about, right? And to also, for various other reasons, just being able to read people, right? I'm very good at that. It's a skill, right? So if he had any ability to read me, I read as somebody who keeps up with all of his belongings almost obsessively, but will occasionally just leave something and just wander off, but I'm probably coming right back for it. So he's not entirely wrong here, but and also, if he was observant of his environment, I was doing absolutely nothing in the area in which he claimed to have found the keys, but my machine that I washed was nearby. So just based on where he was standing, I'm like, no, that's not mine. And then I had the immediate thought of, that's where the two meth heads and they've now left. And I'm profiling based on, these are people who regularly just lose their shit. And that's probably also actual irony, meaning, well, that wouldn't even be actual irony, but both literally and figuratively lose their shit, right? They lose their belongings. They lose themselves mentally, emotionally, spiritually. They're lost, right? These people are wandering in the dry place of seeking rest and finding none, right? But not the spirits that inhabit them. Those spirits have have certainly found a resting place. Well, and by the way, BDB, as we continue to try to break ourselves of that habit, the royal we actually, they're right at home in this realm of death and destruction. So I'm even seeing that I'm adjusting my own ways of thinking and approaching the realm itself. So updating my own nomenclature and belief systems and viewpoints in real time. Uh, Appreciate y'all hanging out for that. So at a certain point, back to the story. Now I'm able to fold my clothes. One of the meth head ladies, and I was ahead of them. I got my clothes in the wash. Well, maybe that's not true. I don't even remember, but I have to think I got my clothes in the wash earlier. So she's just more or less hanging out on this table. Meanwhile, it's like, hey, there's other folding tables. I'm not going to be a dick and say, yo, beat it, beat it. Um, so, and in fact, she's in the way. Like, I sort of just have to, I actually maneuver physically around her to even get my clothes out, which she doesn't even notice or care, which is, again, it's fine. It's what I expect. And I don't even really want that deference of that I would give to somebody, like, oh, I'm in your way, let me move. I would physically move out of the space until they were gone. Even now seeing that, well, actually they could just, if I was her, oh, I see now he can take his clothes out of the wash and just immediately put them on this table, probably fold them and be out at the door in 3 minutes, based on the size of the clothes here. But, I don't expect or even really want that from the public. That's more of my own deal. So I'm grabbing, I grabbed the rolling basket. So it's like, I'm not kidding. This is how quickly this all happened. So when I then roll away from the meth head chick, I go to a table and so let me explain how I'm physically viewing what's happening. So I remember I'm listening to my earbuds. I'm lost in my own thoughts. I'm listening to content. So I can't even really hear that well what's going on in the environment. Although these the earbuds I was using don't have the noise canceling, so I can still kind of hear. But I can't physically see what's going on the other side of these machines. Number one. Number two, um, now, some might say, oh, well, you're not being observant of your environment. Well, I'm observant of what I can physically see. So What had happened was that I had not physically viewed these areas since what I'm about to describe happened, right? So number one thing is I don't pay that much attention to mundanities. So a mundanity would be, okay, this table is pushed up against washing machines, right? Two sides of washers, and that built into the little housing, this is a pretty decent, this is a modern laundromat. So built into like this housing that goes around all of the machines. And the machines are sort of designed, I think, to where they can put, and this is probably how it's sold. Oh, we're going to put 6 back-to-back machines here. Okay, well, the company also offers, whoever sells all of this also offers like a metal enclosure that just sort of nicely encapsulates all that. And oh, as an option, we can build an entire breaker box into all of this. Okay, why would I? And let me calm down a little bit. But there's no reason for me to have noticed that this table has been pushed up against what I'm describing, except it blocks and again, this is back to this unreality, the surrealism. Because if I was the person who sold this equipment to laundromats and I had a way to contact whoever designs the actual enclosures, I would say to myself, well, we have more or less a standard height of tables, right? Folding tables. There's a pretty decent chance that some version of folding table is going to get just pushed up against this. So why don't I let the engineers know? And I understand it may not be possible for this round of design, but if somebody will get the word out, maybe at some point in the future, we can say, hey, bump that breaker box location up a few inches. But then we might get into, yeah, but we don't want the customers reaching out and opening that and fucking with it. So that's probably part of it, except I can still access it. It's just right there. If I want to, I'm free to pull the table back a couple of inches, open it, and start flipping switches. So we're kind of actually, it's not holding water. Meanwhile, I don't notice stuff like this. However, because I think for myself and all of this, I'm able to fairly quickly put all the pieces together when I need to, right? But there's just, and this is also how the brain seeks efficiency. I don't need to know there's a breaker box there until I do, right? Apparently, I needed to know this, and it was in fact my duty to understand what was happening, as we will get to. So and I'm not, this is again, unreality and surrealism, waking dream. This ain't real, man. Now, that doesn't mean it's entirely unreal. I'm not suggesting that this realm is entirely unreal. I'm saying there's absolutely surrealistic and unreality baked into the cake, period. Full motherfucking stop. So I'm talking about the moment I pull a pair of pants out of the pile to start folding them, I can't see what's happening on the other side of the washers. That old man who works there just starts physically moving at me at the fastest speed he can move. Remember, I can't even see his body. So by the time he's coming directly at me, but like kind of around the corner of these machines, he's coming directly at me, right? At his top speed, and his eyes are like real wide as saucers. Remember, I'm listening to content, and he's basically like, "Hey, man, get the fuck out of the way." That's his first message to me, which is fine. And he's not using profanity, of course, but that's what's being conveyed, which is completely fine. But as an undiagnosed fake autistic person / super high functioning retarded person, I lack the ability to just immediately hop to, right? I'm in a mode. And we've talked about this before on the channel, and especially with some of the material of another content creator, Provo, who I believe's agreed with me. See, this is for an autistic person or a neurodivergent person. This is called mode switching, meaning I'm in a mode, right? And I am almost incapable of going from mode to mode if we just snap our. It's basically impossible, right? So it means I need a transition period from the mode I'm in to the mode that I have to be in, right? To act upon what this guy's verbal directions. And meanwhile, even when I'm focused and paying attention, I have a deficit. This is where the retarded person comes in. If I'm dependent upon another person verbally instructing me, I am retarded. Like, for real. Where's my coffee? I think I left it. Hang on. I might have left it on the roof. Give me a second. Yep. As we're unwinding the caffeine addiction. I almost said, by the way, BDB, BDB, as we unwind the caffeine addiction. probably be off the coffee entirely within a week. But I'm not a cold turkey guy on the coffee. I get the headaches, mm. or I have in the past. So I'm happy to get the fuck out of his way, but he's not willing to give me the 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Oh, okay, I'll just back up 2 steps. I mean, literally, I need a 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. On that third beat, I can start to get the fuck out of his way, because it turns out he's headed for the breaker box because in his mind, somebody's being electrocuted. Okay. Now, number one, I have no way of knowing, because of the lines of sight, that him and a service technician were physically laying on the ground, on the floor, working underneath a washer replacing parts, right? Which I'm assuming is some sort of warranty service. This has to be some version of a certified technician. So I'm already thinking, okay, very quickly, I'm like, well, why is he being electrocuted? Is he bad at his job? Now, then it's number two. Well, he's probably not actually being electrocuted. Probably this is some sort of spiritual attack on Mr. Benton. And then the timing. See, this is mathematically impossible timing. It's the same reason why I can go buy scratchers or Powerball or whatever. That's the same odds. Like, that's winning $1 million on a scratcher, mathematical odds of, all of everything that happened that day to lead me to that point, to have an old man physically run at me from outside of my sight and start barking orders at me, right? He's barking an order at me, right? Which again, I am happy to, but I need the part where I choose to act on his orders or not. I need the 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Oh, okay. It's no skin off my nose to just back up. And I don't even know, by the way, BDB, y'all mean, word is Bon Jovi. I will break myself of this habit of saying this, unconsciously saying, by the way, as if it's some sort of what do you call this, Tourette's tick of Tourette's, which I don't have, thankfully. Happy to comply, but I must have the 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. So this is the spiritual attack, and of course it's in front of everybody. And I have notions. I took some notes about this idea that I'm no count or no reputation within this realm, and that's actually viewing things backwards. I'm coming to see, so I'll probably tie some of this in with that. And then there's also this idea that, about proper identification. So if I'm coming into this environment properly identified within myself based on my true knowledge of self, that what I am is one with the most super intelligent force of love and creation possible at the highest levels of vibrational frequency, that means every one of these human beings, if that's in fact what they are in this environment, the majority of them sadly are infested with devils and demons and unclean spirits and wicked spirits and demonic spirits. And those spirits would then recognize me, right? So then this would have to be spiritual attack. Let's see if we can at least temporarily get him to strongly identify with the realm, which I wouldn't say strongly, I would say like low to medium. And I noticed that I was able to conduct myself much better, but then, consistent with how I was raised and what I was taught as a child, especially based on certain traits of what it is to be a man, I did end up having to deliver just a dressing down, which I would also say, chewing some ass or dressing somebody down when it's appropriate and when they've stepped on their dick and earned it, right? And meanwhile, I attempted to let him off the hook, but he doubled down on him being right, and me, thus I have to be wrong if he's right. So now I'm asserting myself, and to say, well, actually, sir, let me explain to you why, in fact, and I didn't use the terminology, but let me explain to you why you're wrong. And because again, just defending myself. Am I really going to, and I'm seeing it now. It's just, there's nothing in it for me. Why not just say, oh, you're right. How foolish of me, but then it gets into passive aggression and sarcasm. Yeah. How foolish of me to not just within half a second, almost like fall on a grenade physically. Like, am I supposed to do a shoulder roll out of there? I mean, for real, like, is that's what's expected? Because he actually began to push the table towards me, which in the moment I'm interpreting as he damn near pushed me physically out of the way. Right. He almost came as close as possible to physically pushing me out of the way, which makes me think of the book of Job, which is like, have you considered my servant Job? And then, part of the wager, if we want to call it that, between thesis and antithesis, God and Satan, in the Bible nomenclature would be, well, just don't physically doing anything to him, which would, to antithesis would mean, okay, I'm going to always come as close as possible to physically doing something. I mean, the guy's physical motions was to push the table, right? Which pushed it up against me. So he's actually physically beginning to push me, but the table is keeping him from directly pushing me physically, if that makes sense. And remember, he's still got the momentum of physically running at me. And I'm not exaggerating. This is an old man. He's not able to really run, but as much as he's able to without potentially falling and breaking a hip, the guy's physically running at me, pushing the table while telling me to more or less get the fuck out of the way. Right. And what's being communicated to me is that somehow this is all my fault, that I'm actually the cause of this, because that is not how it feels. Because remember, I don't process the moment based on feelings and emotions. I process it based on thoughts and ideas and what perceptions. So my perception is I'm being treated as if I've caused a calamity or an emergency, and I'm being treated as if I'm the source of that, which is simply impossible, because I have no frame of reference for, oh, I'm the one person who's physically in the way of the table, which is physically in the way of the breaker box. I have no way of knowing that. It's simply impossible to know that. I would have to be some sort of just, an actual fucking Rain Man, or somebody that just perfectly notices and tracks uh, all details in the environment, but does it irrespective of the value. Like I'm viewing things based on what is useful, right? It's not useful, generally speaking, for me to understand, oh, there's a breaker box there. Oh, this table's in the way of the breaker box. Oh, I'm in the way of the table being moved. See? I'm I'm very capable of reasoning through all of that, but there's no reason for me to have already done that ahead of time. So it's also the realm treating me as if the expectation is that Benton will always be in position and prepared and ready to behave 100% perfectly. And this is the reverse of Christ. This is antichrist, because Christ is to perfectly by my own nature, which when I do express, when Christ expresses, when the risen Christ resurrected within me perfectly expresses in the now, that's what happens. I'm incapable. That force is incapable of folly at the level of spirituality, how it treats people, doing no harm. So antithesis or antichrist is to treat me as if in any given moment, if I fall one iota short of perfectly being able to behave based on the details of the environment, that now I'm bad, I'm guilty, I'm wrong in the eyes of the people that are there. Meanwhile, I'm no count, I'm of no reputation, right? And this is almost like, okay, we have one physically attractive male, and I'll just go ahead and say it, I'm physically attractive, uh, compared to Arkansas is the second most obese state I was just reading about. You know, there's exactly one male who's arguably attractive to some females. Every other male in the environment is, well, and I won't even say that. There was one fat guy who had a fat wife, and I'm sure some percentage of women consider him attractive. Other than that, it's effectively impossible, right? I'm in there eating my fucking sardines and black beans and my little garlic cloves, I'm the only person of a normal body weight except for the meth heads and all of this, right? Like this, I was in LA being treated as if I was attractive. Again, this is not important to me. I'm breaking all of this down from their perspective. And then the demons that inhabit these folks know what I am, or more correctly, know what I'm in touch with within myself. And they're looking to attack. And the fact that the moment I began folding the first item of clothing, this all occurred. That's go buy a scratcher, scratch it off, and win $1 million. That's the exact same mathematical odds, except I don't go into the rare times I go and buy a scratcher, it doesn't win the grand prize. And I can tell I got a little annoyed in my. It's funny to see 11 people then to talk for 3 or 4 minutes, and I look back on the last 3 or 4 minutes and realize that I was a little bit annoyed. I did have a bit of the annoyance in my, because again, this is back to the undiagnosed fake autism. it's very easy for me to tap into feelings of annoyance and irritation. And what's that based on? That's based on identification with the realm, which is, how did that happen? It happened because my parents, whether knowingly or unknowingly, sacrificed me when I was a baby to a pagan god known as Moloch. And then Moloch had already designed a psychology. And then as soon as I started, being involved in this system of things, that began the process of installing a psychology which will, uh, left to my own devices, even today, I will default at times to strongly identifying with the realm itself. And that's what actually is the cause of the last, 4 to 5 minutes of annoyance. And then some folks don't like the Christ Antichrist talk, but that's not my fucking problem, because if folks come here and listen to me regularly and haven't been able to figure out by now what I mean, well, that fuck them. I mean, on some level, do better, right? Is what I would say. Do better. That's whatever that is not good enough. Mm. And I've also realized YouTube runs ads on these live streams, so it could be most of the audience leaving due to the ads, and then when do they get to come back and skip the ads? See, since I have premium, which is about to expire in a week or two, and I'm not sure if I'm going to re-up on that. Maybe I won't. Did people leave, in mass, and now they're going to come back in mass? And does it matter? I mean, 5 or 11, what's the difference, other than just my own a view of myself, right? Am I doing a bad job? But now that I'm doing a body scan, I realize that I did tap into some of that. And it's not the annoyance of the moment. What it is that the way the repression and suppression and depression and oppression operates is that when I am on the verge of inhabiting some sort of emotional state associated with annoyance, irritation, frustration, in my discourse, what will happen is some of the stagnated energies that are still in my physicality will seek, oh, okay, now we can actually, he's willing to give into that annoyance and irritation and frustration. And it's a it's some of that stagnated energies seeking the exit, because my experience has shown me that they're other than being delivered from some of that, potentially, divine intervention. The only way, again, the only way out is through. The only way for this gross, stagnated, low level energies to escape is for me to experience those emotional states. So that's actually probably the cause of that, is not an error in my operation in the moment. It was simply conveniently some of these forms seeking the exit. And I do appreciate the tolerance and understanding of the audience with such matters. And I get it. Sometimes I start to feel some type of way when a presenter or content creator becomes a little overly angry or irritated or frustrated in their discourse. So I get it. I also sometimes will notice that it bleeds over onto me, and it's like, well, do I really want to continue listening to this content? Because then I see that, oh, I'm doing fucking breathing exercises, right? Just to listen to some bozo rant and rave. So I get it. I get it. So thank you for your patience and tolerance. But and on some level, because I'm unwilling to suppress in the long run, some of this is just dealing with what I went through in the moment with the, otherwise I would have had to just cuss everybody out. It's the inappropriateness of just telling everybody to kiss my ass. Like, this is crazy. What are we even doing here? So initially I just I step back out of the area, right? And then once I realize that, so now I need more information. So I see the old man after I get out of the way. Now he flips open the breaker box as quick as he can. He flips off a breaker. And then now I can see, oh, there's a tech laying on the fucking floor, replacing parts. And, something the old man said in the course of all this seemed to indicate something about electrocution, right? But and I almost said BDB, but if someone is electrocuted, I'm almost certain there would have been some sort of a I'm being electric, like some sort of noise made by the person being electrocuted, which leads me to believe probably the old man is just a nervous Nelly type who in his own mind was like, okay, I'm the safety team. I need to stand here and watch this guy. And then if I see him make a move that I think is going to lead to electrocution, I'm going to rush over to the breaker box, except that all makes logical sense, except for the part where he was free to, I don't know, physically move the fucking table somewhere else, right? And open the breaker box so that he's ready, right? Or he could even set up a signal. Hey man, I'm going to go stand by the breaker box. If you say the word, I'll just flip this motherfucker off. Also, why didn't they flip the breaker before they started working on the machine? Now we get into, is this a certified tech? Because I'm assuming if this certified tech went through a certified tech process, there's got to be some version of a lockout tagout. And I myself put myself through a course of Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer. Like there's certain, with computers and networking, there's certain things that just are supposed to be done. Well, of course if you're going to make changes on the domain server, first you do these things, right? And I've forgotten what that is, but I'm assuming if I got trained and certified to work on this equipment, there would be some version of, hey, well, first we have to go through our lockout, tag out, safety process, right? I mean, I came just short of threatening to call OSHA on these people, right? So then I just grab my shit and go to another table, which is exactly what I would have done if that table even just put a sign there that says, a table temporarily unavailable, or what, who cares, whatever that is. And again, lack of proper planning on their part does not constitute an emergency on my part, except I was expected to just know to do a shoulder roll out of the physical area, right? And I was treated as if I should have known to do that. And now I'm bad, I'm stupid, I'm uncarous, and I'm uncaring and callous. See, and that's how reputation works, and that's how a lot of interpersonal mechanisms operate within humans. It's like it's shame, right? This idea that, and we see it in driving a lot. People do certain things in driving not because it's correct, proper, or safe, but because it's based on, if people are seeing me not let this guy into traffic, that might be shameful. Except I'm like, yeah, but I'm driving a fucking big rig. Like I don't need to be led into traffic because I can stomp the accelerator and it's still going to be a 1 Mississippi, a 2 Mississippi, a 3 Mississippi before I can get over there. So how about just go, right? Most of the time, I don't need to be led into traffic by a much smaller vehicle. This is the same exact mechanism. It's that person freezing, going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. If someone sees me not letting this big rig in, that's going to be shameful. It's sort of that, it's that being applied to me in reverse, which is, let's try to see what this guy will do under the pressure of, and stakes are high because it's electrocution and death, right? The specific word used to me was that man was being electrocuted. That was said to me. Now, I didn't even get to the part where I'm pretty sure he wasn't being electrocuted because I didn't hear he didn't make any mouth noises, right? Like I've been fucking electrocuted by, model train tracks and probably went, right. Has anybody ever ran into some version of a, electric fence, back in the day, I was like, stick your tongue on this 9-volt battery, both terminals of the 9-volt battery. It's like, yeah, more often than not, we're making some version of a noise, right? But the tech was silent, completely silent. So now it's like, okay, Benton, in order to process what's just happened as I'm folding my clothes, now it's this whole, now I've got to do the breakdown and the analysis, right? And this is where I'm not that intelligent in the moment, right? My intelligence is more like in reviewing and extrapolating I'm going to review the data and we're going to pick little bits out. So a lady that works there walks by me and I'm like, hey, I just want to address what's happening here. Like I said, more or less, this guy that works here just almost physically pushed me out of the way while I was folding my clothes. And you could still see that even after the crisis was averted, right? The budding crisis was averted. The table that he had moved was still like askew, right? He didn't even bother to move it back into place. So there's still the physical symbol of what's happened here. So I get halfway through asking her about this, and he rushes over to defend himself. Right now, I skipped the part where here's what old Benton would have done, and now this is where the spirit of Christ versus Antichrist comes into play. Old Benton, not properly identified, would have immediately said, "Hey, man, I'm not talking to you." And I would have been very forceful, like, "Hey, buddy, I'm talking to her. How about you get the fuck out?" In parentheses, how about you get the fuck out of here? Because I'm not, me and you aren't talking right now. I'm talking to her, you know. And I would have been a fucking asshole about it because, I come from a long line of fucking assholes. It's in my nature somewhere, or it's at least been, bred into me in some way, right? This is, totally normal. So I'm actually expressing my nature in the moment by not chopping his head off and saying, "Hey, man, get the fuck out of here. I'm talking to her." Right. And as we know, I do have an intimidating, forceful, almost like a bully nature. If folks aren't aware of this, I mean, it sounds insane because I'm like 130 pounds, but I can come across as quite intimidating at times. Right. It's a real thing that's happened, believe it or not. Meanwhile, what's the countenance of this old man? He comes across as very meek, mild, helpful, right? And all of these things. That's how, and he comes across as like the opposite of my high testosterone, right? Just looking at his face, the shape of his face, his countenance, right? Even as a young man, probably was not producing, significant amounts of testosterone, whereas I have the testosterone, I'm all about the peace and love on some level, but I still have the testosteronized face, I still just going to a motel and sleeping properly, not in a big rig, not in the course of doing a truck driver's job. One night of that, and then I ate, I ate like I ate an extra 1,000 calories yesterday. Just those two things, and I'm already like 25% more testosterone. Like I can feel it, you know. So I got that working against me in the moment, So and then I'm managing all that in real time, right? So now I really have no choice, other than just saying, okay, well, never mind, Now, so and then the lady, of course, she didn't want anything to do with it. There's nothing in it for her, so she just leaves. And now me and this guy are having it out, which is fine, except he's very quickly, what's he doing? He's wanting to retell the story of what we all just witnessed happen. Because there's actually the laundromat had begun to get busy by then, and there's people in the environment that certainly this would have been a big fucking deal to an observer. Like this is going to get everybody's attention. Just the fact that he rushed over there and was like, basically like, "Hey man, get the fuck out of the way," And then I'm like, all I said to him was, "Hey man, hey buddy, you got to give me a minute." Right? It was like, "Hey man, like I need a one Mississippi, two Mississippi before I can act." Right? I'm not a person that can just be deputized into immediate action. Right? That's not ever going to happen. You know. And it's interesting, man. Something about what this realm does to you. I think this ties into a specific memory I had. It's an interesting memory as a child. My father and another guy from the Jehovah's Witness religion, and maybe a couple other bozos that I don't remember, but this guy's name was Danny Roberts, and he ended up being a schizophrenic. And his son, I believe, Seth, I grew up with, but I was a few years older than Seth, and Seth ended up being schizophrenic. Just out of off his fucking, off his rocker as an adult. And um, we went out in the woods to chop down a tree for firewood, and I was very young. I don't think Seth was even there because Seth wouldn't have even been physically big enough to go. So I would have had to have been like 6 or 7. And I'm out there, probably had some version of some gloves, and it was winter, so I probably had a coat on and maybe some boots, and maybe even I had like a little hatchet or whatever. And this is probably part of some of the process of we're making this boy into a man, and there's also some version of, they had to have been fucking with me on some level, because right as the tree started to fall or was about to maybe fall, I was told like, "Hey man, basically like, hey, and my name's Aaron, if anybody doesn't know, that was my name until I decided to go into homelessness. It was like, run, basically." And I have vivid memories of, I looked to the left, I looked to the right, like I assessed the situation as a fucking 6-year-old. I made the choice to physically run away. And part of that was I actually attempted to deduce, where do I think this tree's about to fall, right? Meaning, it's no good. I knew at the age of 6, it's no good if I run away, but the tree's going to fall on me, right? And this has to be some version of a spiritual lesson being taught. So I actually took a one Mississippi, This is my memory of this. A 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, then I acted. There's really no version of someone giving me verbal instructions. I'm always going to take a 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. I'm going to decide what to do, which may, in fact, I might just stay right where I am. Right. This is just, it's hardwired into me. This is who I am on some level, from day one. Um, you know, and so interestingly, the spiritual attack came via, we're going to try to get him we're going to force him into acting in this 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, what is wired into him to only ever act of his own volition. Right. This is how cunning. This is what the Bible means by wise as serpents and harmless as doves. And I would say I will finish the story and I'll say I butted up against being the harmless as doves part, but some of these people need their ass chewed a little bit, right? They really do. They need their ass chewed out a little bit. Hey, this guy's finally had enough of my mouth. It looks like he's figured out he needs to start up his vehicle and drive away from my loud ass mouth. Or he's going to the store for cigarettes and coffee, maybe. Who knows? Either way. And I realize I'm going to need to take a quick break and go take a bathroom break. And again, I don't have the intelligence to process all of this in the moment. Like a lot of this I actually don't figure out until much later. And I get the broad strokes I figure out within the next 120 seconds after all of this has happened. So now that he comes back, now that he's over there defending himself and wanting to restate what happened and also say, so the first thing I said to him was, look, man, you directly ran at me. Right. And more or less pushed me out of the way. And so now he's trying to retell the story and say that he didn't do that. And now we get into that man was being electrocuted. Right. So what he's doing is he's connecting his actions to the highest possible virtue of, I'm trying to save that man's life. Right. So he can't ever be wrong in his mind because he's saving a life, So I said, listen, no, man. I said, from my perspective, I said, first thing I said was, I couldn't see any of that, sir. I said, sir, if you look at where I'm standing over there, and it takes us a few beats to even get to this. I'm like, well, I couldn't see that. And then so he's doubling down on explaining what he did. And I said, listen, man, I said, you got to see this from my point of view. Where I'm standing over there, I can't see what y'all are doing, man. Number one. And as this is happening, I look down and, I'm gesturing. I have certain gestures I use. He's got his finger up at me, wagging his finger. He's waving off what I'm saying, right? Except what I'm saying to him is valid, right? And I hold the finger up and wag it sometimes. That's when the finger up means I'm going to make a point, and the wag means your point is not valid. So he's doing that to me. He's got his finger up, which is a gesture of authority, and then he's wagging it, meaning you're wrong, except I'm absolutely correct in this scenario. I'm 100% correct based on my actions. So it's like, okay, now I'm waving off his waving off. I'm sort of just my hand, I'm dismissing what his hand is doing. And I go back to, hey man, you got to see it from my perspective. Like I can't see any of that. I'm doing my own thing. I'm focused on folding my laundry and I don't even mention the earbuds, right? But meanwhile, me on autopilot listening to earbuds is still in the moment. I'm acting at least as intelligently as your average Dumbo, right? So even me there at 50% is still like I'm a functioning Dumbo in the moment, which that's good enough, in these environs, that's good enough. So to his credit, he shut the fuck up and heard me out. Right. And I managed to do this neutrally. I have a loud voice anyway, but I'm not raising my voice. I'm not angry. I'm not upset. I'm just matter of factly stating my fucking case. Right. And again, Spirit of Christ, man, that's what that is, in the moment, properly identified righteously. Right. And not going to be insulting, not going to get vengeance on him or have to correct him. But it's like, hey, man, I'm going to tell you what's going on here. So finally he did, and this is where the forgiveness comes in. he finally just said, I see what you're saying. Right. And which is really what he realized is that, oh, I'm never going to let this go. So he tried a third round of trying to get me to, uh, accede or concede or assent to what he was saying. He finally, so I have to bring it back again, which is basically like, look, man, here's how I finally got him to back off. Here's what's round three was he came around the mountain for the third time. I said, listen, man, if I came running at you, uh, barking orders, it's not physically possible for you to act on those orders in half a second. It's physically impossible because second round of around the mountain was basically like I took his premise and defeated his logic. I said, look, man, I'm not physically able while I'm doing a different activity. I lack the ability. I'm just simply unable to, in half a second, begin to act on a person running at me barking orders. And he still tried to do a third round around. He still came around the mountain for the third time. And I just pointed at him. I said, look, man, if I came running at you barking orders, are you telling me? He's basically like, you can't act on that in half a second. It's just not possible. And then he's like, okay, I see what you mean. And then I took that as, okay, he's finally surrendering to what I'm telling him. He's letting me, he's agreeing to the fact that he's not necessarily wrong. It's that I'm not wrong because we set up a dynamic where I must be made wrong to validate that he's right. Well, it's actually, I'm not wrong, sir. And if that guy was actually being electrocuted, guess what? Neither are you. But breaking down the game tape, I don't think anybody was ever being electrocuted. There's no evidence of that. And in fact, if I was smart in the moment, when he said that man was being electrocuted, I would have said, there's no evidence of that. If I was smart in the moment, if I had the high IQ like people think I do, I would have been like, well, there's no evidence of that. What do you mean? He's laying on the floor, paying us no attention whatsoever. He's completely fine. What are you talking about? There's nothing wrong with that man, but I'm not intelligent enough to figure that out until later. See, this is how I don't have the big brain, the truly big brain, which in some ways, my own brilliance, a lot of it's based on me being stubborn and willing to just, uh, self-flagellate and to just think and think and think and think and think what people would call overthinking. Well, that's a form of intelligence for me. Overthinking is. So I don't know what you're talking about, but 7 o'clock, no, 6 o'clock. I might actually be able to go talk in the room now without disturbing people. So yeah, give me a moment and I'll finish this up in the room. I'd say 6 a.m. is fine. If somebody's, if they're not up by now, they're probably not going to work today. And they know anybody that works second or third shift knows it's just, they better have some earplugs or they're in charge of their own background noise at that point. All right. One moment. We'll be right back. All right. Oh, I think I know why everybody left earlier. I started bragging about how good looking I am. That's probably what it was. I totally forgot that part. Yeah. And so then now we're into autism. So now after the old man goes back to assisting the gentleman who's working on the laundry machines, now we're full autism, meaning I'm going through the logic of the situation, which is number one, this equipment all has to be under warranty. It's so new. Number two, if he's over there replacing parts under warranty, that's got to be some version of a certified tech, right? Or the business is doing something it's not supposed to do. And, you know, either way, it's like we're not doing things properly. So the autism part is now it's been implied on some level that I'm not competent, right? That I'm not competent. So now there is some version of here's where we get into it's a gray area with I still in the proper spirit or not. Although I would say it's probably good for people to be righteously rebuked in a way. Like people do need a little bit of an ass chewing. So I just start saying out loud, to nobody in particular, but just stating flatly, like, and I limited it, right? Y'all know I may have a tendency to rant and rave. My father certainly, does quite a bit of that historically, but um, in the past years, especially of living in the streets with nothing, I would have, you know, it would have been some version of an autistic meltdown, right? We managed to avoid the autistic meltdown, and it was, I was able to speak righteously, basically, like, I think first I, reiterated that I have no way of knowing there's a guy laying on the ground over there being electrocuted, but then um, it was like why is he bad at his job, basically? Like why doesn't he, if there's a potential to be electrocuted, why wasn't that addressed on the front end? And then it's like, hey, if that's a certified tech, is he bad at his job, basically? Like doesn't he know his job? uh, and then also noticing sort of just the depression and general malaise. Like there was this one lady that worked there, and I could tell she was wanting my attention, just the way she kept walking by me, trying to get my attention or whatever. Not to date me, just to see, if I would think she was cute or whatever. And she was probably mid 30s, I guess. And she just wandered by during, my proclamations and just seemed depressed. And the only person in there during all of this that seemed like they had any life to them other than the old man, because remember he, sprang into action, and this is me being spiritually attacked, via these entities. I mean, that's what this is, right? But there was a kid in there, a child, a boy, maybe, I don't know, 12 to 14, somewhere in there, and almost certainly an autistic boy. And, I'd already noticed him right about the time this all started popping off, because as soon as it starts happening, my first thing is I have to scan the environment, right? Like as soon as anything that's seemingly dangerous or unexpected happens, the first thing I have to do is I need to assess any potential enemies that might be close enough to attack me, right? I do this naturally, you know. So that's when I take a notice of this boy who's probably autistic, just like you can just tell, again, profiling, most likely autistic boy. And then the whole thing goes down, and then he actually like walked up to me, like once it was all pretty much done, he like just walked up directly towards me and just stopped and kind of looked at me, and but like with a very, like a spiritual innocence, right? And I almost was like, hey man, how's it going? But and almost sort of a, maybe he could tell I was special on some level too, the super high functioning retarded person, because a lot of people don't really, it's hard for them to comprehend that I'm basically that autistic boy, except the super high functioning covers it all up, right? It makes it where it's very difficult to see, whereas that boy, because probably he's already diagnosed and now medical coding and billing comes into play, and all of that. I'm going to go back to the car though. I've realized my loud ass voice is going to wake everybody up, so I'll be right back. All right, back to the car. And without yurting the stream, I've still got at least an hour, but it's what time is it? 6. Yeah, I'm gonna have to wrap this up within the next probably 45 minutes to an hour. And appreciate everybody. Not that there's many, but I appreciate folks stopping by and letting me give some updates. And I'll get into the personal stuff. I think it, not that it's been bothering me, but I certainly wanted to tell the story of the laundromat and everything. I found that to be quite interesting to be attacked, in such a mathematically unlikely way. Uh, such a strong attack, right? And the enemy, uh, their tactics, becoming more and more sophisticated and difficult to see coming, right? Um, certainly foreseeable in a certain way. I think that's what the Bible means by wise as serpents, to be able to predict in some way ahead of time how might the enemy attack me, right? So I've learned a little bit about the potential for attack. The timing, especially, was just there. That was one of the first things that struck me, was like, as far as the time. Now, see, here's how the autistic freak out or autistic meltdown in the past, I would have had to tell everybody about, the timing of all of this, and just I would have had to really emphasize every little detail, versus in the properly identified righteous state. And see, I'm hard on myself. So when I reviewed it initially, my thing was like, oh, I failed to properly identify. But actually, as I look back on it, I was properly identified. It was, that was something that needed to express, right? That righteousness, and then the depression part of it is, I've detected for a while now that a lot of folks are certainly just mailing it in. They've given up in certain ways, like they're going through the motions. Just life is beating people down so much. Um, I see that. Just you can just read it on their face a lot of times. Um, and it's so bad, like, just generally, that I wanted to eat my food in there. But I know from experience, and this is back to the cunning spiritual attacks, wise as serpents. I know from experience, I need to look around for signs that says no food or drink. But I also know there's a chance that the moment I start eating, somebody's going to come over to admonish me, to tell me I'm doing something wrong because by eating. Now, the fact that someone else may already be eating doesn't mean anything. Another person can sit there and eat and nobody will ever say anything. But the moment I put the fucking food in my mouth, I might just be pounced upon. So I actually go up to the counter, where you drop your laundry off, and I'm like, hey, I don't see any signs, but I just want to make sure I'm good to fucking eat. And then she almost acts confused, but and I don't say it to her, but it's like, yeah, I just don't want anybody jumping on me like the moment I start eating. I just want to go over there and eat in peace. If not, I'll just go eat in my car, but it's less convenient. Because there's actually like an area to sit down and eat. You know. And then some would say, well, fuck them if they're going to be that way. No, that's repression. So this is something else I noticed. I saw YouTube. I didn't watch the video, but I saw the thumbnail and the title, and it's a lot of like ideas around not letting people get to you, right? Which is, to me, that's backwards. That's suppression. That's repression. That's what that is the other person. It's like, basically, don't let people get to you, right? But I would argue that if they come over and I don't see that they're going to tell me to not eat in there, and then the idea of, well, don't give them your emotions, right, would be to not react to it. But how does the person not react while also going through a human emotional experience? That would be repression, and repression is always harmful to the individual. And this society will just tell you, hey man, like, be stoic, don't give them your emotions. And my thing is like, yeah, but the emotions are happening. That's already it's not them. I'm not giving them my emotion. It's what do I do with the emotion, right? It's see, that's a wrong way to look at it. Like, it's not about them getting the satisfaction or not getting the satisfaction. It's about, if I'm if the way I avoid expressing, indignation, outrage, or anger is to just eat my feelings in the moment, what that is repression. And that's always harmful to the individual, always. Um, so for me, it's to avoid that. It's not to say, oh, well, I can't ever be wrong by sitting down and eating because there's no sign. Because when they come over, now I can just be like, well, what do you mean? There's no sign. Now that's resistance. So when I talk about proper identification and the resurrection or second coming of the risen Christ within me expressing through me, that force is incapable of resistance. Okay. So when they come to me in the moment, how else am I going to maneuver through that except through resistance? See? And if you look at what happened with the old man, I was able to go through all of that. And, arguably the only time I got into resistance was not by resisting, by just standing up for myself and setting a boundary of, he was trying to paint a picture that was simply untrue, and I'm like, well, actually we're going to go back to what actually happened. you know so it was me starting to tell the woman what happened, then he rushes over with falsehoods. So that's never me creating resistance, that's me righteously expressing as I was already expressing. Do you see the nuance there? So to the lower evolved, person who's not practicing, who will try to give me advice, hey, be stoic, don't give your emotion. I'm like, no, that's wrong, because that happens when I suppress or repress, and that leads to oppression and depression. I mean, it really does. And I stole that half of that idea from a different content creator, but I already had the first half of it by the time I heard his idea. So, you know, I'll say that that's okay, that I stole half an idea and added it to one of my ideas. That's okay. So it's also, when I talk about correct philosophies, the absence of incorrect philosophy, is to be able to recognize this system will happily give me certain things that, when unexamined, appear to be correct. Oh yeah, don't give them the satisfaction of your emotions, but it's like, yeah, it's up to me to know from experience that I might start eating, and even though it's not posted, they might rush over and start acting like I'm an idiot for eating in there, right? And they'll act, the actions will be, the attitude and the tone of voice will be like, I'm bad, I'm wrong, guilt and shame, how dare I eat in there, basically. Like, and then the attitude will be like, things are going to get ruined, right? Like there's going to be a big mess is going to be created. Maybe that sharp edge on that can of sardines is going to cut somebody. Like, it will be that kind of energy. So my thing is like, hey, I just want to make sure, because I'll just go eat in my car if it's going to be the energy of Benton is in here creating hazards, right? Which I'm not doing, by the way. BDB. Word is Bon Jovi. Yeah, I mean. And so the nuance there, it's very interesting, because to a lot of people, those two scenarios that I'm describing will be more or less the same thing. No, they're not. And it is foreseeable based on my own experience. Now, if I'm ever in a situation where I see some, where it's possible that I'll observe somebody working on laundry machines, and then I notice, oh, there's a breaker box right there, I'll just make sure not to be in the way of a potential spiritual attack, right? Live and learn, live and learn. So that's kind of the same thing. I've had people, where I just use my best judgment, started eating, and then they're like, "What the fuck's wrong with you? You can't eat in here." And they don't say it that way, but that's the energy, right? And now I'm wrong, and I'm bad, and it's guilt and shame. Except, wait a minute, What do you mean? Like, I'm using my best judgment here, and everything's fine. And if I make a mess, I'll clean it up, which is what I did after I finished. I went and got some paper towels, and I cleaned up the table as best of my ability, right? Like, this is fairly basic, the idea of everything I needed to know I learned in kindergarten type shit. It's like, yeah, this is just, yeah, if I make a mess and I'm aware of it, I clean it up. This is not fucking rocket science. All right, well, I think I've said enough about that, so we'll get back to the personal. I know some folks are interested in the Mr. Benton personal life stuff, so I got back to the yard Monday morning, and remember, that's the first day of the blitz, so uh, I intentionally made sure to roll into Dallas Fort Worth before any checkpoints were manned. Although I did notice when I left town, they were already giving truckers inspections. And Texas has some of these inspection stations that most of the time there's nobody there. This, and other states have this too, and where the authorities can go to this one particular like truck parking or whatever. They can flip a switch, and then the sign out on the interstate will say, all commercial motor vehicles must exit for inspection or whatever. So they were all, and there was already the tire service, the roadside service was already at the first truck. So I rolled to the yard. None of this was happening. It wasn't even daylight yet. While I was cleaning the truck out and getting everything, my ducks in a row, by the time I could roll back out and decide, I didn't even know if I was going to quit or not. I realized I wouldn't know what to do until I got to the yard, you know, uh, and that's sort of trusting myself to know what to do. And then even then, it was like, okay, do I just drive to Cali and say, I'll worry about the driver's license later and maybe just give it up entirely, you know? Although if I'm going to get tags, that needs to be now because the tags expire at the end of the month. And then I realized, okay, well, I can go renew my driver's license, and then I can still have time to make the decision around. Like, I don't have to decide immediately about the tags because even then I could renew the driver's license. I could say, okay, I could then decide to go to Los Angeles or California or whatever, and just say, okay, now I'm going to not have the car. And then, so if I'm not going to have the car, there's really no reason to get the tags. But the one thing about being from Arkansas, the tags and the property tax on a car is so comically low. I mean, there's really no reason not to get the tags. Although the thing is, my car insurance, if I pay by the month, is $106. And some may say, oh, that's a lot. It's not, though, because these insurance companies are very intelligent, and they figured out that I'm paying car insurance based on living in Arkansas, but then I'm spending time on the West Coast more often than not. So it's like, yeah, but if he's parking the car and driving the car around LA, like, actually 106 a month is a fucking bargain. So, it kind of makes sense that they charge me that much. Um, that would only be a lot if I never left fucking Baxter County or wherever they think I live, Baxter County, Arkansas. Um, and for the listener, that is a helpful way as far as critical thinking and all of this to be able to reason one's way through a problem, right? It's like, because it can be difficult in the moment to sort of know, I must start the decision making process, but then, I want to do this in the best way possible. And after driving a truck for 2 months without really a break other than just downtime, you know, uh, I can't ever be wrong by just going off to a motel for 2 to 4 nights. Like, I've kind of earned it in a way, right? It's like, yeah, I really probably need to go get a little bit of actual rest. Yeah, I get proper sleep while I'm in a big rig doing a job, but it's sleep that's specifically tailored around doing the driving, right? That's the purpose of it, is to be ready and alert and able to do the job. Um, and like I noted on the stream when I was headed back to the yard, it's like it really has gotten too easy in a way. It's just, it's the only difficulty in the job at this point is what the company does to me at the level of just sending me all of these messages. And I might read some of them because they haven't removed me from the WhatsApp yet, or as of last night they hadn't. Maybe I'll go on there now and maybe I'm removed. No, I'm still on there. I'm still on the fucking WhatsApp. So, I'm still getting these messages. So, like the driver announcements, I'll read you everything that's come in since I sent them the message that I was quitting. Let's see if I can find this. Oh, he texted me, I think. I think I got a text message from this bozo. It's not even on the WhatsApp. Wait a minute. I'm tripping. I don't really know how to use WhatsApp, so I think that's the problem. Okay, here we go. Announcements. Yeah. So this is what I've gotten just since I sent them the message that I was quitting. Um, all right. Let's see. Okay, good morning. I want to start by saying thank you to those of you who are staying compliant with company policies. To those of you who aren't, I strongly recommend that you start. When wearing your seatbelt, it must be worn properly across your chest, not hanging so far down that it triggers the camera to tell you to fasten your seatbelt. So, if we're unclear, I was being observed by AI, right? Which part of that may be actually Indians, like another content creator has noted. It might actually just be human beings watching cameras more or less randomly, because one time I got it said over the little speaker, the disembodied female voice said, put down phone, so that, yeah, it could be actually an Indian person clicking a button, certainly. But either way, it's, from my perspective, what's the fucking difference? Um, for those of you repeat speeders, if you can't comply with the company's speed limit policy, your truck will get turned down to 65 or 68 without notice, which is what they did to me, interestingly. Now, because I'm new with the company and with the undiagnosed fake autism, super high functioning retarded person, I just kept speeding because I know how to speed and not get a ticket. So what that led to was this safety manager had already decided that, okay, we've told them not to speed. And so the ones that have continued past the warnings, he already decided he was going to turn the truck down without warning. Now, he did that to my truck, but I never, I didn't even get the courtesy of a warning. Now, part of this is he knows some of these drivers will just fucking quit the moment their truck is turned down without notice. And without notice means he climbed in my truck and reprogrammed it without telling me, except that I just happened to be observing him and was just so doop doo doo, just so lost in my own bullshit. I didn't even think to be like, hey, what's this guy doing? You know, and it's somewhat normal to just, plug into a diagnostics port with a laptop. Like, that's not that unusual of a thing on a big rig. Um, so, and it's some version of I'm being treated like a child. And this is the transition to self-driving trucks right now, because remember, the self-driving trucks, when Carl, that's his name, I don't work there anymore, so it doesn't even matter. His name's Carl, Carl, not like a proper king with a K, with a C, Carl with a C. Now, as I'm doing this, I look over and there's some large black man is directly facing towards me, which is kind of interesting, perpendicular to me. So as I was seated in my car delivering the discourse, out to the road, he's perpendicular to me, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if he noticed me or not. Yeah, now he sees me. And that's the thing is, we don't know people's intentions. We don't know what their intention is. Like, at first, it's like, is this an enemy and somebody who would oppose me? But as soon as I look at him, he kind of gives me the what's up, and kind of half smiles, and then I give him the little peace sign. It's like, yeah, now we're good. Yeah, we're good now, man. It's something about it's a bit of a namaste, right? And if I wasn't on a live stream, I might go over there and have a little chat. But if I wasn't on a live stream, I probably wouldn't be sitting in the car right now. So, in order to continue truck driving, it's not the fact that it's not even the truck driving. That's all easy now. That's fucking clown shoes. It's the fact that I sat at the receiver, I'm sorry, the shipper for 22 and a half hours. Like, at this point, that doesn't even like, that's just normal. It doesn't happen often, but it happens. Like, that's just normal. So now the spiritual attacks for me personally is coming more through, okay, now it's the transition to self-driving. The companies are now starting to adapt to where in the next 2 to 5 years, most of the trucks are going to be driving themselves, or it's going to be their human drivers are all going to be some version of a local driver who's, more or less shuttling the trailers around. And then the actual, most of the long haul portion is going to be the truck drives itself. And if anybody's in denial about that, it's already on record officially that they're doing round trips between Houston and Phoenix. I'm sorry, Houston and Dallas. And then once it's announced that this is meaning, if I am wanting freight hauled, I can contact Uber Freight, and there's a possibility that my freight will be hauled by a self-driving truck with no human in the cab. That's officially happening. Whereas we already know it was already happening, but they called it a test program. So when asked, hey, what about these self-driving trucks? They could say, oh, we're testing it. Well, testing it means they're doing it. Okay. Testing means they're doing it. Now they're saying the test is over. We're just doing it. So it's officially happening, right? It's happening officially. When I entered the industry in 2018, they were hauling mail out on I-10 between Phoenix and LA. So, I mean, this has already been a thing for a while. Oh, but it's a test. Okay, well, they're doing it though, calling it a test. So that's doing the thing. So let me go back to this message before I. So that's just half of the first message. In part, as a whole, interesting. We are doing better. So that's interesting. In part, as a whole, we are doing better. And remember, there's no we. I'm a truck driver doing long haul. It's just, that's me. I'm not part of a group. But then, when the group is admonished, well, certain things I do really good, and other things it's like, oh yeah, I'm speeding, except somehow I've driven almost 4 years and never gotten a speeding ticket. So yeah, I'm air quotes speeding. But then as we know, when the AI and the driver facing camera and the insurance for the company, they're now switching to a strategy of they want to pay the least amount possible for insurance based on, the insurance company's like, okay, but we need you guys to make sure that these drivers aren't doing certain things. And then we want, as the insurance company, we want to directly be able to see what your drivers are doing. Right. We want them wearing seatbelts, not using their phones, and not speeding. Okay. Yeah, which is fine, except when it's what I call just in time freight, then it's like, okay, except I will not guarantee. So under the old system, I could almost always guarantee, they call it a service failure, if the pickup or the delivery is not on time. I can almost guarantee proper service on a just in time because, yeah, I'm going to speed, I'm going to do certain things, right? But I'm not going to get caught doing those certain things. That's the key. Uh, and apparently this company has grown to where they are now through running, as close to outlaw as they can. And now they're transitioning to, we're going to do it by the book. And surprise, surprise, that happens to be, pretty soon the trucks, most of their long haul stuff's going to be done by trucks who are going to do all of this, except for if the company wants to, the company could probably get the insurance company to sign off when there's no human in the cab. And yeah, it's okay. Yeah, you go ahead and tell the truck to speed a little bit. Right. That it's interesting that the truck will never be able to get in trouble for speeding. It's me. I'm the one who can get in trouble for speeding. It's funny how that works. So he says, and now just think of how diabolical this is. In part, as a whole, we are doing better. So it's actually what he's saying is you guys are doing bad, but you're not doing as bad as you were doing when I first told you to knock it the fuck off with the speeding. Please keep up the good work. Lastly, I want to personally thank each and every one of you for what you do for the company. Thank you. Well, I don't do anything for the company. I allow the company to employ me in exchange for living in a truck and money, right? Like I don't beyond that, it's just if a human being makes a request, out of my own humanness, I will do my best, under certain circumstances. I'm fuck the company, by the way. The company's dead. Okay. The company's dead. As always, have a wonderful day and be safe. P.S. The DOT Blitz starts today. They are focusing on tires, logbooks, and brakes, and they always focus on brakes, no matter what. Please make sure everything is in order. If it's not, get it that way and reach out to either Tanya or myself. Thanks. And I don't get paid. So I'm paid $0 for making sure that the equipment is correct. Okay. $0. I don't get any money for that, just so we're clear. And then the next message, notice to all drivers, CVSA International Road Check, May 13th through 15th, 2025. Be advised, a 3-day CVSA road check will be conducted May 13th through 15th across the U.S. High volume inspections will take place at way stations and roadside checkpoints. Special focus areas this year, driver hours of service logs, vehicle tire condition. And then just a whole bunch about how to do your job. And remember, all of this is since I sent the message Monday morning that I quit. Hello. You must stay off your phone while driving. He somehow managed to misspell phone, but I guess that's a typo. If that's important to text or browse the internet, then pull over. Not only is it a company, and I also do this at times. There's times when my phone's mounted to the dash, but there's times I'm all over that fucking thing. Not only is it a company violation, but it's also a state federal violation and packs a hefty fine. If you get caught and ticketed and inspected for having your phone in your hand, see, I don't ever have it in my hand, or rarely, I should say. You will be terminated, no questions asked. It is unsafe. Please don't do it. And then I love the it is unsafe part. Yeah, it's unsafe, except everybody does it all the time, everywhere they go. And I understand some portion of the listener will say, well, not me. Okay, that's great. I'm speaking, 9 out of 10 people, every single car trip are on their fucking phones. Right. Period. End of. That's just how it is at this point. It's just a fact. I understand some folks believe that they don't do it. If your phone is within physical reach of you, you are on that. You have that motherfucker. Now maybe it's mounted on the dash like mine is, but otherwise you're looking at that phone every single car trip unless you physically can't get to it. That's just a fact. And if people are in denial about that, I can't help you. Right. Because if you know you're not going to look at it while you're driving, why are you putting it where you can reach it? That's what I would say. Oh, well, I think I'll forget it or whatever. That's fine, except it'd be pretty easy to train yourself. Oh, it's in the trunk. When I get out of the car, when I get in the car, I put it in the trunk or the back seat or whatever. When I get out of the car, I immediately go and retrieve my phone. You know, if people need to talk to you, then they can call you as long as you are hands-free communication. Thanks. And then there's something about an article about the CVSA to urge FMCSA to limit truck driver conveyance time. Again, back to the truck driving, back to self-driving trucks. There's no hours of service with a self-driving truck. So this is why the rates are in the toilet, because markets adjust ahead of time. So as long as there's humans doing long haul, the rates will never come back to what they were. Right. So now I'm seeing there's a channel that I follow over time, a very astute, the guy that does he's a, runs a company or whatever. He's a vice president at some trucking company, and he's very astute. And he's just did a video about, is trucking sustainable in 2025? And he's explaining all the reasons why. And he doesn't say because of human drivers, but everything he presents is, going forward, it's the environment is now here, and going forward, it's simply impossible for companies to make money in long haul. It's over with. Now, what that means is, when he's talking about what the driver costs, he's talking about what the fuel costs, he's talking about what the equipment costs compared to the rates. What he's not saying is that pretty soon the cost of the driver will be mostly eliminated for just regular old dry van long haul, and probably reefer also. And that then at the current rate level, companies will be profitable. Now, the company I was working with, agreeing to employ me, they're probably profitable overall because they have a lot of direct contract freight. And the benefit to the company to pay more under contract is they're going to have a better service, because they can fine the company when there's service failures, versus if they just go, spot market, if they put their load on the spot, on the apps or whatever through a broker, it either gets there on time or it doesn't. And there's not really any version of, they can't really do much about that, if that makes sense. They're just they just kind of get whatever they get to that extent. Right. That's how that works. What time is it? 6:38. Yeah, I'll wrap up on the personal stuff then. So that's enough about what the truck driving has been doing to me. And it is important to note that these 2 to 5 years, most of what I do as a truck driver is it's gone. It's absolutely gone. It just will not be. Now, there will still be truck drivers and truck driving jobs, but for what I do, the majority of the time, that shit will be over with no more than 5 years from now. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm putting my name on it. And yeah, I'm not great at predictions, so maybe I'm wrong on the timeline, but it's absolutely there's no way it doesn't happen at this point. It's absolutely going to happen. And people are like, well, what about Wyoming and this and that? It's like, yeah, that's called ice road truckers. Do you think it's a coincidence I've never driven a big rig in Wyoming? Because to try to go across Wyoming in the winter, like that's actually like fucking ice road truckers, like for real. 80-mile-an-hour winds and goddamn blizzards. Like, yeah, I'm good on that. No thanks. No thank you, sir. And intermodal's taken over a lot of it too. And just since I've entered the industry, the average length of haul is way down, right? So I was already doing a lot of short stuff anyway, which doesn't bother me. I got used to it, that's fine. But and it's all completely fine. But I'm one of the few who's able to see, oh, okay, markets adjust ahead of time. The market knows I'm a cost that's about to be eliminated, and the market has already adjusted the rates to account for that. That's how it works, right? That's just how markets operate. So there's nothing anybody can do about that. So the rates can't come back in the short term. And, probably whatever the next crisis is, whatever the next fake pandemic is, that will be, my opinion is that's when they will just be like, okay, we're just going to go ahead and switch over to self-driving, but they've already switched over to it. It's already happening. The switch is happening now. Part of this also is there's way less foreign drivers. Part of this is the tariffs and the enforcement, and apparently they are beginning to enforce the English language and stuff. Like you have to be able to, at an inspection, apparently some of the time they have to prove they can at least read from a sheet of paper that's written in English or be placed out of service. And like people have noticed, that doesn't, out of service doesn't mean you wait 10 hours and then keep driving, although some companies will choose to do that. It means the truck can't move until a person who can read English comes and picks it up. Now, whether or not there's still a DOT officer there to check when the truck drives away, I mean, hypothetically, the non-English speaking driver could just stay there until all the enforcement leaves, and then they could shoot. But then they're still violating the. See, they're still violating. It's still a violation. A lot of drivers mistakenly think that just means, oh, we can wait 10 hours to keep driving. Now, that's to restart the logs, meaning if they're placed out of service for logs, that means the DOT is saying, we don't know when you last took a break, so we're not going to let you drive until we know you've rested 10 hours. And a lot of drivers don't understand that. No, it doesn't mean you stay here for 10 hours and leave, because I've only ever been put out of service for mechanical stuff. And it's like, no, you stay here till it's fucking fixed. And that's what I was trying to say earlier. By the time I was leaving Dallas, there was already the first truck in line for the inspections. The road service was already there fixing the tires or fixing the brakes or whatever they got put out of service for. So it was already happening. So it's like, if I drive for 2 months, why would I want to work 13th, 14th, and 15th during the blitz? Like, why would I even want to bother with that? Doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't I take time off? Or why wouldn't I just quit? So, when I got back to the yard, a lot of the reason why I knew to trust my intuition and quit the job was, part of it is having a certain amount of money, but then I've already worked a full week. I don't know if they're going to pay me, but probably they are. Now, some companies will just be kind of vindictive and will mail the last check. So that's possible, but, which would go to my mom's house, but most likely they're going to pay me on a direct deposit. A lot of these companies have figured out, because of driver turnover, it's better for the company to just have a good reputation for paying the workers, and not being shitty about it. So probably I'll get another about $1,500 Friday, probably, but it's not a guarantee. And if they mail a check, that's fine. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But, and if they're super shit, I've never had a company just not pay me my last check, but it's always possible. That's truck driving for you. And, the writing was on the wall for me. It was like, because I know if I stay with the company, they're going to want me to go to Arkansas, do my business, because I scheduled this home time ahead of time. Right. And I told them, hey, after the 12th, I need 2 full business days in a row to go to Arkansas. Right. Which means if you get me back on a Monday don't count. I need a Tuesday and a Wednesday, and I'm not going back till Thursday. So from their perspective, that's 4 days, except, see, they will view that as 4 days off, except I'm working 2 of the days. Like, for real, this is just how truck driving works. So I'm telling them, like, hey, I need 2 fucking full consecutive business days off, meaning if you get me back to the yard on a Monday, that shit don't count. And if I go back to work on a Thursday, that shit don't count. Like, you see what I mean? Like, I need Tuesday, Wednesday. And meaning if you get me back on a Thursday or a Friday, you can go ahead, and I can't work the Saturday or the Sunday, because now I need the Monday. Right. So really what we need to do is make sure that I have like a Tuesday and a Wednesday off, or Wednesday or a Thursday. See what I mean? So really they know, okay, we got to get him back by, Monday. If we can't get him back to the yard by Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's all for nothing. Right. Which is fine. So, it just happened to coincide. I happened to get there on a Monday, right when the blitz was starting, right before the blitz started. So at this point, it's like, obviously I'm not coming back before the fucking blitz is over. Number one. Number two, serendipity, spiritually guided and protected. This is some version of being spiritually guided and protected, which is, something or whether that's me looking out for myself on some level, one with the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest levels of vibrational frequency, living my purpose, BDB, these things. It's getting so serious that I was actually talking about a lot of this in my dreams last night. So that's a further, and I don't put a lot of stock in the, my dreams having specific meanings, but it's a reminder to me that, yeah, this is probably what I'm supposed to be doing, is some version of, preaching some of these ideas. Right. But in very specific ways. I was telling somebody in a dream about their creative force never lying dormant, all of this. and they're bringing something new into the existence every moment, and whatever they birth into whatever they're bringing into existence either serves, one of two forces, thesis or antithesis. And to me, that's a very important message that I'm just simply not hearing anywhere else. Now, are there versions of that buried in religion and in certain, spiritual texts? Absolutely. And I read most of that stuff, 10 to 15 years ago, and then I've walked around and thought about it, and it's taken me this long to grow and change and evolve enough to even be able to apprehend the material well enough to explain it in the way I explain it. So that's, of course, I'm not hearing it anywhere else, right? Who else is, as far as I can tell, I'm the only one who's dedicated himself to trusting that, hey, eventually it's going to be revealed, right? Or more correctly, eventually the thing that's already there will reveal itself to me, which is probably backwards. That'll just be my perception of what's happened, right? Realistically, it's me existing in a delusion that limitation is a possibility, where the limitation from me understanding and comprehending all of that is actually somewhat self-imposed via delusion that only exists via antithesis, but that the antithesis is only ever with my tacit consent because I am thesis, right? Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk can't ever conceptualize that there would be any reason not to listen to what antithesis is proposing, right? Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk just doesn't know what a calamity is, right? That's just how that works. Doesn't know, well, just can't conceptualize calamity, full stop. Yeah, it's almost 7. So, yeah, it's interesting, man. It's interesting. So it's all happening on those levels. And so first, once I drove away from Dallas and headed towards Arkansas, I go up 30 in my little car going up 30 towards, but in Texas, towards Texarkana, Arkansas. I stopped off in New Boston, Texas, and another interesting little story happened where uh, I went into Walmart and got whatever little bit I needed in Walmart in New Boston, Texas, and then, which is like, I don't know, 20 miles up the road from Texarkana, Texas, and then Texarkana, Arkansas. And I went into Walmart and I ate some of those cookies. There's Walmart sells these cookies that, based on the ingredients, seems to be something I can eat, and they haven't fucked me up. So I forget the brand, but they're specific. It's like $5 for a thing of cookies, but it's all real ingredients. It says but it does say artificial. It says natural flavor, but as we know, that can mean it could be anything. But who the fuck knows? But overall, it's actual real ingredients. It's about 1,000 calories worth of cookies, right? And I'm so thin, cookies can't do anything to me in the short run. Not that people say, "Oh, you don't have to worry." Fat people say, "Oh, you don't have to worry." It's like, what do you mean? When I was fat, I got to eat whatever I wanted. Actually, the fact that I'm thin means I do have to worry. So actually, that's backwards. But whatever. It's fat people who can eat whatever the fuck they want without worrying. Right now, I understand guilt and shame plays a part, but yeah, I absolutely need to watch what I eat, because I took a picture of my fucking of my tummy the other day and looked at it and thought, there's not a lot of 49-year-olds, especially that are from the second most obese state in the country, that have this sort of waistline. So that has to mean something on some level. And yeah, I could stand to gain a pound or two, but overall, I'd like to stay closer to the way I look around the midsection. Maybe add a little bit of muscle over time, perhaps, if that's in the cards. But um, either way, so I saw a sign that said "in" kind of on the horizon, and I thought, well, I'll just start walking that way, right? And I'll just wander. And it's still like 9 o'clock in the morning, and I know that I'm not going to be able to check, but I might choose this. If they give me a good deal, I might get a couple of nights in this motel, right? Because I knew from checking that probably I can't renew my driver's license until today, which, what's today? Wednesday? It's Wednesday, and this was Monday. So I know, because it's 90 days from my birthday. So I know that, I'm in no real hurry. And then I can do it anywhere in Arkansas. So hypothetically, I could do it in Texarkana, Arkansas, at any county, at any revenue office in Arkansas. I can renew my driver's license. And I may or may not, I'm going to end up driving to Baxter County at some point, but I also knew that I might just choose to not even worry about that and go to California. So, I'm still doing my decision-making matrix that I've talked about before. That's still happening. Um, Hang on, I'm having to watch the clock because I want to be at the revenue office right when they open in about little over an hour. Not that it'll be busy necessarily, but less time is better waiting at the revenue office. But to go get a renew the old driver's license. And oh man, hang on, we're stretching. Oh, that's the morning stretch. Oh yeah, it's good stuff. Woo, felt good. All the little children going off to school, waiting for the bus out here in the motel parking lot. That's normalized in America. I guess it's probably always been that way to some extent. Mm. Some guy walking directly towards me now. I don't know if he knows I'm sitting over here or not, but I closed the door just in case. I think maybe he saw me with the door open and was going to come try to ask me something, but went ahead and closed the door and ignored him. But there for a moment, he was directly walking towards me, which is usually a sign of something. People tend to tip their hands, but maybe he was just based on where he's walking to. He's probably just walking through the area, just checking out what was going on, which is fine. I mean, the kids, by the way, BDB, he's probably actually doing his job because with the little kiddies about to get on the bus, he's at least watching out, like, hey, who's that guy in that car over there? You know. But then I've got the front glass, the windshield's covered by this. I can't even see the kids in front of me. But whatever. That's probably for better that he's out here at least observant of what's going on. So good on him. So so then I realized, so I'm started wandering over towards where the motel was, and then I realized, oh, I need to rinse my mouth out from these cookies. I'd already eaten the cookies by then, and I did not have any water. So I was like, oh, there's Starbucks. And what I know of Starbucks historically is you can just say, hey, let me get a water with no ice, and they'll just give you the fucking tap water. While also understanding, yeah, I know y'all sell bottled water. Like, I'm aware that there's bottled water. And I am a Starbucks customer. And I'm almost certain that on Sunset in Los Angeles, Echo Park, they absolutely would have given me a fucking water, no ice. So hilariously, and we talk about feminism just being built into the culture. Well, I think these were local college age girls working in there, white girls, the worst, man, by the way, the absolute worst. No diversity, because this is New Boston, Texas. It's got a bit of a small town vibe, except it's on a major interstate, right? It's not that far from Dallas Fort Worth. It's like 150 miles or whatever from like the outskirts of Dallas Fort Worth. But like small town fucking white chicks, around the college age. I shit you not, as I'm walking up, the windows are so tinted, I don't understand that I can see through the tint. And one of them's just directly looking at me with like the most hateful expression you could ever imagine, right? Which is whatever. I mean, it's neither here nor there for me. I just want a water, no ice. I'm getting the fuck out of there. So then I walk up to the counter, and of course, there's the standard corporate greeting, because they're trained to do that, and they get in trouble if they don't. Right. And in fact, Blockbuster had started doing this when I worked at Blockbuster in the 90s. It was this idea that, I must greet everybody as they walk in the door, even if I have to just comically yell across even if I'm like, way over in the corner somewhere, everybody's supposed to yell. You're supposed to greet the customer, even if we're yelling across the fucking place, because an MBA somewhere figured out, oh, if everybody walks in the door and they're greeted, people are actually less likely to shoplift. I don't know if y'all know that. That's what that's based on initially, was the idea that people who might otherwise shoplift are less likely to if they know they're being observed, which is, hey, have somebody speak to them when they walk in the door, right? So to remind them, hey, we're watching you. That's what that initially was based on, and then it just sort of became a thing across the board. But yeah, they had me doing that in the fucking 1995 at Blockbuster Video. I only worked there for a couple of months, but um, so then I'm like, oh yeah, and I think I'm being asked for my order, but in fact they're actually hating me so much they're sort of just standing there. Everything stops. So I walk in, just everybody freezes. The three white chicks, and all the attention goes to me, which I take to mean they want to know what I want. So I'm just like, hey, um, basically, let me get a water, no ice. Then as soon as I say that, they all go back to whatever they were doing. So then I realized, oh, they weren't. It actually wasn't my turn to order. So then I'm like, I add, well, when you get a chance, because now I sound demanding, right? And so I'm immediately told, basically, like, hey, we don't do that, but like we sell bottled water. Now I'm almost certain that the corporate policy is give this motherfucker his water out of the fucking tap. But I don't even care at that point, and I'm just like, oh, okay, well that's fine. I just was eating some cookies and needed to rinse my mouth out, and I'm just, and then I wandered across the street to the McDonald's, and I never go to McDonald's anymore. And they happily gave. I was like, hey, can I get a water cup? And they just immediately hand me a cup. I go over there and get the water off the drink station and rinse my mouth out and continue on about my day. And again, the old Benton would have needed to go into Starbucks and sort of get my pound of flesh. The old Benton would have needed to do that, right? But no more. I let them live or whatever instead of going and chewing their ass out. Again, properly identified. So that was interesting. Then I went over and talked to the lady at the motel, and they just wanted way too much money for 2 nights. Because I'm trying to tell her basically, like, hey, I'm a truck driver, pocket full of money, yada yada. And then I'm trying to say, I don't smoke. I'm not gonna have guests. I don't have pets. Like, the motel is gonna make money if they rent me 2 nights for $100. And the lady's kind of affable, and we're having a back and forth. But and so I'm just like, well, this looks like a nice motel, and you're going to fill up, meaning I understand why you won't take my $100 for 2 nights. And she's like, actually, it's a slow season. And so the old me would have been like, yeah, so go ahead and give me and I might have even become aggressive and just like sort of, kind of talked her into it. And what I told her was like, yeah, I'm driving to Arkansas, and this is, where I'm almost to Arkansas, but, you know, what I'm about to do is just drive past motel after motel after motel after motel after motel. So I said to her, I said, I'm pretty sure somebody's going to rent me 2 nights for no more than $100. So it's like, and here's from a business standpoint, why not use her good judgment, realize, hey, this guy's going to stay maybe 2 to 4 nights and then continue on with his life. But then there's a pretty decent chance it's not a trick and he's not going to tear our room up, and I'm willing to pay a cash deposit if that's what's necessary. So, how about you just take the money, right? And America is not about that anymore. America used to be about like cash is king, the customer's always right type shit. But it's just like, even in Texarkana. So then I went 20 miles up the road to Texarkana, and Texarkana in some ways is way fucking more in your face shitty than Fort Smith. Fort Smith is shitty, but it's more like, yeah, there's crime and all of this, but it's lurking, like kind of unseen. But in Texarkana, dude, it's like right in your face, man. Homeless people wandering around everywhere, flying signs. Like, there's homeless people wandering around here, but it's a much different thing. And there's some people flying signs, but it's more like you can tell they're sort of keeping it on the down low, versus the ones in Texarkana, it's just all in your face. Like, whoever's at the corner by the Walmart is just like, they're the kinds that like will just walk up and down and sort of just stare at you, and like they're very aggressive, right? Here it's like they sort of know their place, and they're sort of shucking and jiving and shuffling, and it's kind of, they're showing themselves, but only to the greatest extent possible. And there's a blurring of the lines where if they're not carrying all their shit, you can't tell if they're homeless anyway because of the economic factors. Unlike LA, where you can't really tell because it's become fashionable to dress like a fucking homeless person. So a more cleaned up homeless person and just a regular white gentrifier, you can't really tell the difference, which is kind of hilarious. In Los Angeles, you got to really know what to look for. A lot of it is whatever the footwear is, and really the condition of the footwear. Not even, because now, I don't know if y'all know this, what's in style in LA, or at least when I was there, was to get these retro shoes, like Reeboks from the 80s that look like they've been worn. So it's like, yo, homeless, that's what homeless people historically have just like found in a dumpster or whatever, like for real. Except this is like some, person that paid $100 at the fucking the little flea market on Sunset. Yeah, crazy. Interesting times, to be sure. Never a dull moment. But so what I noticed about these, and I've stayed before. I've stayed in Texarkana, but it was like By the time I got to the second or the third motel, only to get turned away because they're insisting on a certain minimum rate above $50 a night, right? So I'm like, well, fuck this. I'm just going to go and see if I can get a room in Fort Smith because I was almost certain that I could get a room in Fort Smith for no more than $50 a night, which was true. Except now this place, although they don't have the Oyo sign for whatever reason, they're going through Oyo. So, and I couldn't tell, man. Here's how it's getting so bad. I couldn't tell, was I talking to a human or an AI, or maybe I was talking to a human part of the time, and then the AI was imitating that same person's voice, perhaps. It could be a combination, I just realized. But I got a reservation for like $89 with tax for 2 nights. And then when I got here, they didn't really know how to check me in because not that many people, except when there's some sort of event in town, apparently hardly anybody. And it's the same motel I stayed in before. They still do the $700 a month rooms. Although when I called, I think I called Oyo and I said, "Hey, are you in Fort Smith or are you fucking at the call center?" I think they just lied to me and said they were in Fort Smith, like for real. So I took that to mean how much are the monthly rooms? And she just quoted me a bargain basement price because I guess she gets a cut of it as a commission. And she was like 900 plus tax. I'm like, that's way too fucking much. Then I get here only to find out, yeah, they still they still have the $700 a month rooms. It's like, so what even is this? Which I'm probably not going to stay in, although I'm still considering it on some level, but probably not going to happen. Although I might, haven't decided. Again, keeping my options open, um, but just interesting going through all of that. And then so I drove up old Highway 71 from Texarkana, all through the people towing RVs and all this stuff, but then also like going like 80, passing people at certain points. It was interesting on that little 2 lane, Highway 71 in Arkansas. Um, which I've driven a lot of times. I used to we'd go from Fort Smith to like in between Fort Smith and Hot Springs, Arkansas a lot. You end up from Y City up to Fort Smith. That's all Highway 71. Oh, and dude, listen to this shit. When you're getting into Fort Smith on 71, it's all like stoplight to stoplight. And granted, I was going 55 and a 45. I'll give them that. But as I was coming through the light on a green, some dude in a pickup truck just turned right directly in front of me. And thankfully, I was paying attention because, I'm always paying attention going through a light. But the move for me was jam the brakes real quick, keep as much speed as possible, because a lot of folks don't realize in a lot of emergency situations, you're better off keeping as much speed as possible versus just slamming on the brakes. If I'd slammed on the brakes, I might have just slid right into him. I jabbed the brakes, then I steered into the area he was just leaving because I was paying enough attention to realize there's nothing over there. So I jabbed the brakes just to slow up, because if I had just kept going at my speed, I would have just smashed right into him. So I jabbed the brakes. I knew that there was nobody over there, so I steered into the area he was just in and then went back into my lane. Otherwise, that would have been an accident. I don't know if that's a sign of anything, but that was interesting. That happened. And then got here to the motel, got checked in, and I just paid for another 2 nights. Um, and that was another like it's like $90. So I'll pay 4 nights. I'll pay just under 200, I guess, total. So not bad. And they do weeklies, 215 plus tax, I think they told me. And although I'm not even sure that was accurate because the sign still says weekly rate starting at 239 plus tax. So I don't fucking know. But and then if I want to do the monthly, it's 700 with it. And then this place takes $100 deposit just to rent 1 night of a room, which is fine. Cause yeah, it's like, yeah, I know I'm getting my money back. As long as they're honest, and they are. So I know I'm getting my money back. And I have a little bit of a rapport. Some of the same people still work here. Although now that I have hair, they don't necessarily recognize me immediately. But that's all happening. But I guess I'm out of here. I'm going to get ready, get my game face on. Let me yurt the stream. I'll check out the comments for a second, and then we'll get out of here. Wow, only one other comment. Mr. Someone. What's up, Mr. Someone? I am someone. I am someone. I am someone. Back in the days of homelessness, like street level homelessness, I used to feel so spiritually attacked and like I was just being treated like I was nothing. I got to where I would just start singing, I am someone. I am someone. I am someone. I think that's like a little bit, like half of a little part of a song, maybe a U2 song or something that repurposed. So yeah, Mr. Someone, good to see you, whoever you may be. So yeah. Anyway, good times. Let me check the notes. Oh, I left the notebook. I took the notebook back inside. I had a bunch of notes, but that's all right. So I'll probably will be back to live streaming once I figure out, whether that's if I end up renting a room here for a month or maybe. Oh, this is what I wanted to talk about. My apologies. Let me yurt the stream. But before I yurt the stream too hard, dude, I finally vacuumed this car out. I finally was able because I really couldn't clean it out in LA because I would have had to go to I would have had to drive to a car wash and then take everything out of the car. And the problem with that is it attracts meth heads. So I can't really clean the car and fucking stave off the meth head simultaneously. It's a little too much. Uh-oh, now somebody's posting. Yeah, I see you. Join Skew, whoever you may be. Good to see you, sir. Or madam. Sir, madam, baby, child, whatever. And so I finally got to vacuum this car out. I spent it was 50 cents for the vacuum. I spent at least $4 vacuuming this thing. It's like a whole nother world. And because I had the back windows covered up, and when I was inside the car, I would have the front windows covered up and the windshield. I covered all the windows when I was sleeping in this bad boy. I finally cleaned all of the glass outside and inside. I still haven't washed the car, but I kind of like the patina. It's got a nice patina on it now, so I might just not wash it at all. I kind of like how it looks with the dirt on it, and might just leave it like this. It's got LA. It developed an LA crust to it that's seemingly even the rain can't seem to penetrate. So it's got that going for it. So I might just leave it on there. But yeah, it's a whole nother ball game. And I don't know if anybody listening remembers, but I mentioned that I had a minor roach infestation in the car because I was collecting cans and bottles out of the trash for recycling because it's I was making 10 to 15 bucks a day every day picking up cans and bottles in LA. And so because I had a car, I would end up using part of my hatch area for the cans and bottles that I would turn in like the next day, in combination with whatever I found, early part of that day. And so, of course, roaches were introduced into the environment because of that. And I think I'm almost certain most of them, I can't say all, but most of them got vacuumed up. At a certain point, I was vacuuming between the seats, and like one at a time, like six of them went running in the same direction, but separately, and got vacuumed up. So and there was a bunch of little ones roaming around, but I'm feeling pretty confident that that's a thing of the past because that was a bit alarming and unnerving to realize that holy shit, I got roaches in my car. That's a new level of like dirt bag, white trash living that I had yet to experience. It's like, yeah, I've rented motels by the week before that were roach infested, but and maybe see one or two at this place, but and in fact got bit by bed bugs the first night I slept here, and I'm pretty sure it's because I used their pillows last night. I did not use their pillows because I sleep on the floor. I don't know if people know this, but I typically sleep on the floor, and I got bit a few times the next day. I had some bites on me. Although I wake up so comically early, by the time the bed bugs were biting me, it wasn't like I wasn't still trying to sleep. I was already awake, but I had like 4 or 5 bed bug bites. But this place overall is bug free and clean. It's just, pretty much anywhere's susceptible to this kind of stuff on some level. They do a good job here, I have to say. And in fact, a lot of the places here are known for being just bugged out to the fucking max. Here comes a school bus. Yeah, that fellow was waiting. He's waiting to see his kid off. So he's doing the right thing. See, he's supposed to be seeing who's this guy hanging out right when the kids are going off to school. We've never seen him. So he's actually doing what he's supposed to do, which I appreciate. I'm like, yeah, man, keep it up, protect the kids. Absolutely. I'm all for it. Yep. Anyway, yeah, that's the main thing is the cleaning up of the car is I feel it's like a weight lifted off my shoulders because like I wanted to do that, but what I realized in LA was like, look, I have to, you know, I'm gonna have to go to a fucking motel, move out of the car into the motel at least for a night or two, and then go clean the car. Like just no version of I had so much bullshit in the car. There was really no version of doing that and they worked me so hard. This month, on 2 months on the job, I think I worked 8 full weeks. I think it's what it's going to end up being. That there really was. I never had the time when I was back at the yard to go. You know, I would have had to directly get back to the yard immediately, throw all of my stuff. By the way, and not, am I gonna risk? Am I gonna risk? This is horrible. This is a very Arkansas thing where the children are getting yelled at and admonished, much in the way I was admonished and yelled at. I'm hearing a guy go, "What did I say?" Like to a kid. Like, it's a very Arkansas thing. They're still raising kids that way to some extent, the same way I was raised in the late '70s, early '80s. A very specific way of raising and talking to the kids as if they're adults who should know better not to behave certain ways, right? Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. Certainly wouldn't do any good for me to go over there and try to tell them that. It'd actually be counter. They'd double down on it. But what was I going to say? But yeah, and then I would run the risk of taking something out of the car to put it in the big rig to drive it off just to be able to vacuum it out. Now maybe I'm going to have a roach infestation in the big rig, so it's not even worth it on that level. So yeah, as soon as it was practical, I cleaned this motherfucker out. That's what I did yesterday, and um, I cleaned at least. It was so dirty in here. I wiped down the front, the front half, and then I still got to clean out the back half, and it was this tiny little car, but. Dude, living in a car, I had already slept in it quite a bit before I got to LA, and then living in it for 6 to 9 straight months, dude, it was disgusting. I'm not that disgusted by stuff. It was disgusting in here. And just looking at the glass, I'm like, this is crazy, just how dirty just the glass was. So feeling a lot better based on all of that, but it's time to go. I'm going to eat a little bit of food, and then drive over to the revenue office, and maybe I'll come back and check in later. Who knows? Thanks for watching. Bye.